Jon Jones stated that fighting Alex Pereira or Tom Aspinall would essentially be the same fight for him in terms of style and approach. However, he explained that he would prefer to face Pereira because that matchup would contribute more to his legacy. According to Jones, his clearest path to victory in both matchups would be to take the fight to the ground. He emphasized that against Pereira, he would need to be very smart and use what is in front of him. The biggest difference between Pereira and Aspinall for Jones is the amount of footage available for study. Pereira consistently posts training footage, including sparring sessions, and has a full kickboxing career in addition to his MMA record, giving Jones a large library to analyze. Jones believes Pereira has a particular style with visible tendencies in his combinations, his counters, and his defensive patterns. He stated that his job would be to identify the holes in those tendencies, and he feels confident that he could do so. While acknowledging Pereira's punching and kicking power, Jones said his grappling strength and experience would be very difficult for Pereira to handle. Jones then compared that analysis to a potential fight with Tom Aspinall, saying that although Aspinall is physically bigger and the takedown might require a bit more effort, the overall scenario remains similar. Jones remarked that he does not believe the UK wrestling system is as strong as some assume. He believes that if he were able to get Aspinall to the ground, the outcome would likely mirror what would happen to Pereira on the mat. To Jones, both opponents are extremely dangerous on their feet and possess knockout power, but both also have noticeable weaknesses in their grappling departments. From his perspective, the style matchup is nearly identical between the two. Ultimately, Jones indicated that legacy is what matters most. He questioned which opponent would resonate more historically. In his view, one fighter is impressive right now but may not hold long-term significance in the eyes of the public, whereas the other is already cementing himself as a global figure who will be remembered for years. When asked how he envisions the conclusion of either fight, Jones said his clearest finish would be to strike long enough to find the right moment for a takedown and then secure a submission or a ground-and-pound stoppage. He has stood with every elite fighter in the world, but the path he sees most efficiently leading to victory is taking both men to the ground. Paddy Pimblett has taken another jab at Arman Tsarukyan ahead of UFC Qatar, and this time it happened in the comment section of a viral video. Tsarukyan recently appeared in a segment for TNT Sports called "Winner Stays On," where he was asked to pick the winner between countless fighting matchups. The format was straightforward. He chose who he believed would win, and the winner remained in the lineup for the next comparison. The segment began with Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje, and Tsarukyan chose Poirier. From there, Poirier stayed in until the hosts continued presenting opponents. Tsarukyan picked Poirier again against Eddie Alvarez, then again against Michael Chandler, Donald Cerrone, Tony Ferguson, and Max Holloway. Eventually, he picked BJ Penn to win over Poirier and then also picked BJ Penn against Edson Barboza. Once Arman's own name was inserted into the comparison, he confidently chose himself over BJ Penn. He then continued to pick himself in a series of hypothetical matchups. When asked who would win between Arman Tsarukyan and Conor McGregor, he picked himself. When asked who would win between Tsarukyan and Charles Oliveira, he again chose himself. When presented with a matchup between himself and Paddy Pimblett, he immediately picked himself without hesitation. He then chose himself once more against Ilya Topuria and Islam Makhachev at lightweight. When asked about a matchup with Khabib Nurmagomedov, Tsarukyan broke the pattern and selected Khabib, acknowledging the former champion as an exception. The clip went viral, not only because Tsarukyan backed himself constantly, but because it fueled debates about confidence versus arrogance in MMA. This video ended up on social media platforms where thousands of fans were arguing over whether Tsarukyan is simply self-assured or disrespectful toward the sport's biggest names. That is when Paddy Pimblett jumped in. He left a comment under the video that immediately started spreading across MMA fan pages. Paddy wrote, "Arman versus a bit of back pain on fight day. Back pain checks," clearly mocking Tsarukyan for the time he withdrew from a scheduled fight citing back issues. The joke implied that Tsarukyan might be unstoppable against elite fighters in his own fantasies but still struggles against back pain when it is time to step into the cage. It was a typical Paddy-style troll that blends humor and provocation. Pimblett's comment added fuel to an already heated rivalry between him and Tsarukyan. Although there is no scheduled fight between them, statements like this continue to build anticipation and heighten fan interest. With both fighters rising rapidly in popularity, the online exchanges only increase the likelihood that they will eventually meet in the octagon. Kamaru Usman expressed that he does not believe Ian Gary or Belal Muhammad deserves the next welterweight title shot, regardless of who wins their upcoming fight. He questioned whether either fighter has earned a championship opportunity at this stage and pointed out that both still have unresolved shortcomings in their resumes. Usman mentioned that it was not long ago that Belal Muhammad lost to Shavkat Rakhmonov, and despite his recent win over Sean Brady, that defeat remains a significant mark on his record. According to Usman, one recent victory does not erase that loss or place Belal in a mandatory challenger position. Usman further commented on the situation if Belal wins, addressing Belal's long-standing relationship with Islam Makhachev. He pointed out that Belal has previously stated he did not want to fight Islam for the title because they trained together and share a brother-like relationship. Usman questioned how that dynamic changes now that Belal is speaking openly about wanting a title shot should he defeat Ian Gary. To Usman, this raises questions regarding Belal's sincerity. He implied that if Belal truly considered Islam his brother, he would not push for a fight against him for the championship, and if he does want to push for it, then the narrative of loyalty may not have been genuine in the first place. Usman asked the rhetorical question of what fighters are in the sport for if not for the championship belt. In his view, every elite fighter should be pursuing the gold above all else. If a fighter publicly claims to avoid a title shot because of personal ties but later seeks that same opportunity when circumstances shift, it calls into question whether the relationship was used as an excuse rather than a true expression of loyalty. Usman emphasized that if the goal is not to earn the belt, then the purpose of competing at this level becomes unclear. The broader message from Usman is that neither Ian Gary nor Belal Muhammad has done enough to secure the next title opportunity, and both still have unanswered questions in their competitive resumes. Whether it is Gary's rapid rise without beating top-ranked opponents or Belal's inconsistency and shifting stance regarding Islam Makhachev, Usman believes that neither fighter should be guaranteed a championship position based solely on the outcome of a single fight this weekend. Khamzat Chimaev delivered one of the most surprising statements of UFC Qatar Fight Week when asked about the possibility of Ilya Topuria and Arman Tsarukyan clashing backstage. Chimaev found himself in a difficult position because he is on good terms with Ilya but has a very close, almost family-like bond with Arman, whom he is cornering for the Dan Hooker main event. When the question was presented, Chimaev clarified that he would never physically engage with Ilya under any circumstances. However, if Ilya and Arman began fighting, he would allow them to settle the situation on their own without interference, insisting that it should stay one-on-one. Chimaev added that the only time he would step in physically is if outside people tried to intervene or escalate the situation. If anyone from either side were to jump in, he would immediately take them out to protect the fairness of the confrontation. The most explosive part of his statement came when he implied that he would be willing to fight Alexander Topuria, Ilya's brother, if he tried to interfere, because realistically he would be the one most likely to jump in to defend Ilya. This comment spread quickly online and caused a huge reaction among fans, especially given the rapid rise of Ilya's popularity and the intensity surrounding potential future matchups. While Chimaev's comments exploded in the media, Arman Tsarukyan had already expressed a much calmer view of the situation. He said he has no personal issues with Ilya and that if they meet face-to-face, nothing physical would happen. Arman stated that he respects Ilya and would greet him normally, possibly even shake his hand. For him, there is no reason to escalate anything outside of competition. Tsarukyan and Hooker are currently competing for the #1 contender position in Ilya's division. However, it remains unclear whether Topuria will still be fighting at lightweight when the contender is ready. Discussions about Ilya potentially moving up to welterweight to face Islam Makhachev are intensifying, and many signs point to that being a realistic option if he wins his next bout. When questioned again about the situation, Chimaev reiterated that he hopes nothing happens backstage because the sport should remain professional. He acknowledged that sometimes highly charged moments help build fights and generate excitement but emphasized that he does not want unnecessary conflict. He sees the promotional energy as a natural part of MMA, but he believes everything should stay within the boundaries of the sport rather than turning into chaos. Ilya Topuria responded to Khamzat Chimaev's recent comments regarding a potential matchup between him and Arman Tsarukyan. Chimaev was reluctant to give an opinion at first, as the reporter asked several forceful questions trying to draw a stylistic breakdown out of him. Eventually, Chimaev kept things respectful but admitted one thing openly: when it comes to a striker versus wrestler matchup, he will always lean toward the wrestler. Coming from an athlete with a decorated wrestling pedigree, that perspective makes perfect sense. However, even though Chimaev chose Tsarukyan in a hypothetical matchup based on style, he was careful to avoid disrespecting Ilya and spoke in measured tones. When those comments were presented to Ilya, the champion disagreed strongly with the premise that the fight could be simplified to striker versus wrestler. He shut down the narrative immediately and made it clear that the matchup is far more complex than people try to make it seem. According to Ilya, Arman would not be able to simply take him down at will, and the idea that the fight is decided based purely on wrestling is extremely reductive. Topuria emphasized that he is not a one-dimensional fighter. He explained that historically, fans and analysts often oversimplify styles, assuming a wrestler will always dominate a striker, but he pointed out that modern mixed martial arts is far more dynamic than that. Topuria elaborated by saying that wrestling versus wrestling can go either way regardless of nationality or background. He referenced examples of Russian wrestlers losing to American wrestlers and vice versa, proving that assumptions based solely on wrestling origins are inaccurate. He also mentioned that in MMA's earlier days, fighters often had strengths in one area but clear weaknesses in others, such as good striking and wrestling but weak jiu-jitsu, or excellent grappling and striking but poor wrestling. In contrast, Topuria stated that he is confident everywhere. Whether the fight goes to the canvas, stays on the feet, or turns into a scrappy battle in the clinch, he believes he is comfortable in all areas and can adapt to whatever direction the fight takes. Ilya used a metaphor to describe his confidence, saying that many fighters claim they will drag their opponent into deep waters, whereas he was born in deep waters. To him, it does not matter where the fight goes, because he has the skills and composure to thrive in any scenario. He concluded by stating that Arman Tsarukyan will have a very difficult time dealing with the full scope of his abilities.